4 gold medals for China on day 1 of the Paralympic Games in Paris. The competition includes swimming, shooting, and badminton. Thousands of people from all over the world are participating, and China has sent more than 250 athletes to compete. 95 of those athletes are first-time Paralympians. The Games will run 11 days. Let's delve a little bit further into the Paralympics, building on the success of the Paris Games just a few weeks ago. We're now joined by Mike Bako. He's the sports editor at the dailynational.com. Mike, always good to see you. Thanks very much.
My pleasure, as always.
The Paralympic Games are underway, and using the past as a yardstick, typically they don't get much marketing, social media buzz about them, but it seems to be changing. Do you think that's a fair comment this year?
I think particularly this year, and the ones that were at the root of it were the actual organizers of the Paralympic Games. They sent their social media account into a bit of a frenzy by trying to capitalize on a lot of the social media trends, a lot of the different songs that are popular across brands like TikTok and on Instagram. And they actually got a lot of blowback from it because one of the methods that they used was not taking a genteel approach to, hey, here are the Paralympians, they're in a wheelchair, they have a prosthetic leg. They set to music these videos of crashing into each other, of them doing their events, failing at their events, falling over, really showing these Paralympians as true athletes, what they actually have to go through. They really leaned into it. And not a lot of people were happy about it because it almost looked like it caricatured some of the things that they went through. But this is from the official account. And here we are talking about it. It got a lot of traction online, multiple millions of views across many of the videos on TikTok. So. Right. For what they wanted to do, it really solved that problem of getting awareness out there.
Well, anyone who doesn't think that these amazing athletes aren't true athletes has never watched any compete in sports. But let's talk about how different global brands are approaching the Paralympics. If money's going to be made, these brands want part of it, and the guts and the courage and the never say no attitude that so many of these athletes have.
And that's exactly what Nike is doing this go around. They really leaned into that competitive fire and that competitive spirit with some of the ads that they recently released. So Nike has gone all in. And then other brand sponsors of the actual Paralympic Games, Citibank, Deloitte, have really gone in big. Deloitte in particular is really seeing some good returns, cross-referencing what they're doing from the TV and the digital ads across social media platforms. So already you're kind of seeing, not quite on the scale that the official Olympic sponsors do for the Olympic Games, but these Paralympic sponsors are really leaning into it. They're seeing an audience, and they're seeing where the audience is going. You saw a huge jump in U.S. viewership on digital platforms that NBC had, like Peacock, and then across YouTube, replaying some of the videos. So really popular with the demographic that we have not seen over the last few Olympics.
Yeah, let's hope that this goes off as smoothly and as successfully as past. Well, we talked about the organizers, but what about the athletes themselves? Are they using social media the same way their counterparts did? Like Ilona Amar comes to mind just a few weeks ago.
They obviously don't have, or not obviously, but they just simply don't have the reach of, say, someone like a Simone Biles or some of the other professional athletes who are Olympians. But one of the people that comes to mind is Matt Stutzman. He's called the armless archer. He has a social media presence. He doesn't have any arms, but he's competing in archery. So they're really leaning into it. It's a way to extend what they're doing. This is their time to strike. Even with Olympic athletes, it's every 4 years. We think about Simone Biles as one of these transcendent stars, yes, but every 4 years the spotlight really shines, and even more so in this 2-week period here for the Paralympians.
Okay, so the spectators and the athletes that will be there. Paris is a very old city. It doesn't have the same infrastructure accessible for people with disabilities as many other nations. What's it like trying to navigate the streets, the subways, for spectators as well as athletes?
It has been a challenge. It was a challenge during the actual Olympic Games as well. We were covering it from afar here in New York, but some of our correspondents there were saying that just the street congestion, these older European cities, just for able-bodied people, let alone in this circumstance for the Paralympic athletes and some of their family members. One of the accommodations that they've made, they've kind of retrofitted some of the Olympic village households. They made them accessible to begin with, so they refurbished on the outskirts of Paris, sort of in a rundown neighborhood. They kind of recreated the Olympic Village there, so they went to the extent of making those accessible there. But it has been a bit of a challenge. But again, they could deal with this on all the Paralympic Games, whether it is in Tokyo, whether it was in Rio. Not everything is set up to be 100% accessible, but they do their best.
Okay, Mike, media revenues increased by some 20% compared to the 2020 Paralympic Games back in Tokyo. After revitalizing the overall Olympic movement that Paris really is getting credited for, will it do the same for the Paralympics?
We certainly hope so. I mean, the reality is this, that the average viewership for Tokyo about 3 years ago for that 2021 Summer Games was about 14 to 15 million viewers a night. And that was deemed a failure to some degree, especially considering what happened this year with Paris. Over the course of the entire 2 weeks of the Paralympics, that was their total viewership across all 14 nights. So there is a huge disparity in terms of interest and viewership. But where we are seeing an increase is in the awareness, in the acceptance, and in the willingness to want to watch this. It's not just an afterthought that happens 2 weeks after or 3 weeks after the Summer Games or the Winter Games. This is something that brands are taking more seriously, that the Olympic movement is also taking more seriously.
Yeah, and I think as you so effectively said, they're leaning into it. That's well said. Mike Bako, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
My pleasure. Take care.